Ha 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 ha. Hi everyone, Slathany Trey Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new self-titled record from singer-songwriter Michael Kiwanuka, who frankly has been killing it for quite a few years now, going gold in the UK with his last record and his debut record. He actually does pretty decent numbers throughout Europe. It's just over here in the US that he hasn't totally exploded yet, despite him being one of the few current-day mainstream parallel songwriters that truly embodies the classic sounds of American soul music. Now, Michael is not simply that, he is a singer-songwriter at heart, also works into his music elements of psychedelic rock, folk music, making his catalog so far a pretty versatile array of classic sounds from the American songbook. Up to this point, while I have loved a track here and there from Michael's last record, his debut record, I'm really yet to fall in love with a whole project. There are moments on Michael's records where I feel like his vocals just come off a bit too mild, moments where the songs aren't as memorable or where the instrumentation production is a bit too sterile or overwrought. I love what Michael's sound and style represents, even the messaging behind some of his songs, like the very lovesick and funny Bones or the unflinching Black Man in a White World. So up to this point, I've been admiring Michael's work from afar, but also feeling like something distinct or necessary is missing. His latest record here, self-titled, third record, I'm taking notice, mostly because the teaser tracks from this album were so excellent, easily some of Michael's best work so far. You Ain't the Problem, Piano Joint, The Show-Stopping Hero, which sounds like a mid-60s protest song that would have rocked the Woodstock stage back in the day. And while Michael has worked with Danger Mouse before on his last full-length record, he seems to now be the primary voice and brain behind the production here, which I think has led to a sound that is far more representative of an era that Michael so obviously borrows his ideas from. But they achieve this without making this record's appeal feel as if it is rooted in this nostalgia gimmick. But seriously, the drums, the guitars, the acoustics, the string sections, that light sheen of reverb on the lead vocals on so many tracks here, all of it reads classic. It's all very well produced and engineered, and occasionally reminds me of stuff Danger Mouse has done in the past with the likes of the Black Keys on records like Brothers or Attack and Release. So this small change in aesthetic for Michael's music has actually meant a lot more appeal for me personally. And I think Michael realizes the power in this newfound sound as well, because there are quite a few vocal performances on this one that feel bolder. On the front cover here, he is not presented in shadow or not presented at all. He is now looking like an emperor. And considering this thing is a self-titled, you have to assume that for Michael, this must be some kind of defining moment for his identity as an artist. And that's something I definitely sense in comparison with his previous records, which just don't come off as confident, as forthright. The opening track, You Ain't the Problem, feels a lot more upfront than a great deal of Michael's discography so far, with its buzzing guitar leads, its zany la-la-la background vocals, Michael's lead vocal melody, which zigzags in a very interesting way. This mix of sounds feels equal parts tongue-in-cheek, but also deathly serious. It's an urgent but catchy blend of so many prevailing and revolutionary sounds from the 60s. So that's how the record opens up. How the record closes is with the very psychedelic, dramatic string-back ballad Light, which is a very moody but enjoyable finale for the project. So strong finish, strong beginning, but everything in the middle is a bit of a mixed bag. Especially these interlude tracks on the album. I can appreciate that Michael wanted to create some cinematic throughways in the track list that made this album feel like an experience. I think they could have been more evocative or creative though, like the Piano Joint intro or the Hero intro, both of which sound like slowed down bits of music from the oncoming track that they're teasing, pretty much musical extensions of these songs, but again, slowed down. Granted, the audio on Piano Joint intro is enhanced with some very dramatic vocal harmonies and ominous drones, so this one doesn't seem quite so pointless. However, the Hero intro, yeah, this is just Michael's voice and guitar, but like slowed down. And I get literally nothing hearing this track transition into the actual song it's referencing. And why these two songs are teased in this very specific way, but no other tracks here, I'm not sure. There's also the Loving the People interlude, which I do enjoy the vocal snippet on, some of the backing instrumentation too, but the guitar solo on this interlude is bad. It's really bad. It's sloppy beyond belief. Thank God it's short. As far as abstract and transitional moments with great instrumentation and a justice message are concerned, the best example is probably Another Human Being, the last leg of which, with the very dark drones and the news report audio, almost feels like something off of a Godspeed record, but it still doesn't add that much to the overall sequence of these tracks for me personally. So while the interludes on this thing may mostly be unnecessary, the core tracks for the most part are very good. Like the song Rolling, one of the catchiest tracks here, head bobbing groove, very classic, warm bass line, strong theme melody too. It's a very even blend of psychedelic rock and soul. There's a little Sly and the Family Stone on this one, a little Hendrix, I would even say a little Creedence Clearwater Revival. It's great. Then there's Piano Joint, which I think is Michael's most powerfully sad song by a mile. The piano progression on this track is great. The strings are amazing. They aren't super heavy, they're not super in your face. They add a subtle but effective backdrop to what Michael is doing on the piano, what Michael is doing with his voice. The sound is so stark, bold, somber. It's lyrically simple, but its sentiment is still powerful. The song Hero, from what I can read in the lyrics, sees Michael struggling with his image as an artist and a public figure. What does Michael need to do to be seen as a hero or a larger-than-life icon? Being put on a pedestal, building yourself into something you're not, dying a hero's death, these are ideas that this track explores pretty well. And it does this against some incredible production, a great tune, very urgent and psychedelic folk rock with an instantaneously catchy vocal riff. Am I a hero? Am I a hero now? The song Living in Denial feels like a pure soul throwback, a soul hit single from decades and decades and decades ago. It's very Isleys, it's very Temptations. The grand show of horns, the warm clunky bass, that classic reverb just filling up the mix, it's euphoric. To the point where the track makes up for some of Michael's vocal shortcomings. There are moments on this track where I think volume-wise and delivery-wise he could come off a bit bolder. There's still a very melancholic tone to his voice that you can't help but relate to, though. The track Final Days is the last track outside of the closer that really wowed me on this project. It's one of the most undeniably modern songs in the mix here, but aesthetically it's still presented in a very classic fashion. The bustling beat, the very smooth chord progression on this track, the moody atmosphere, all of it reads more like something that would appear on a Radiohead record as opposed to what Michael typically comes off as being influenced by. But again, Michael's voice and Danger Mouse's production makes it feel like it's all coming from a time where it just didn't exist. It's like a really beautiful anachronism. For sure in the track list there are songs that are pretty underwhelming. I've Been Dazed feels like it is way too deep. In a Daze. The song Solid Ground dips also into a similarly dreary well as Piano Joint, but gets less results. The sequencing across the record also feels like a bit of a mess, though that could have a lot to do with the interludes not being all that great. Overall, I would say this is a very good record, though. Michael is sounding more charismatic than ever, more compelling than ever. The production is the best he has been on so far. The songs are some of the best he's delivered so far. The classic blend of psychedelic rock and folk and soul is great. There are some pretty noticeable flaws on this record, but nothing that kept me from truly enjoying it. Feeling a decent to a strong 7 on this one. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Michael Kiwanuka, forever.